I'm Judith Lenzen, and the agency I'm working for is the Federal Agency for Nature Conservation. Large complicated name. My division is Nature Conservation and Agriculture. And I was invited here now to speak about dialogue and communication to support sustainability transition in agriculture. First of all, I'll give you some information how agriculture is here in Germany. So half or even more than half of our areas is used as farmland and more at a third grassland, and all the rest is cropland, and most of the cropland we plant grain. Ultimately, we are observing changes in agricultural farm structure. So the number of farms is decreasing while the structure of farms is increasing, what has an impact on farm structure. So what we can see that agriculture got more and more intense, as you can see here on the right picture. Crop production is very high and ecosystem services and biodiversity is decreasing. So the goal where we want to go when we speak about a sustainable transition in the future is that we want to go somewhere here in the middle of the picture. So a close to nature agriculture where biodiversity can prosper at the same time as crops do. We are seeing already what is happening now in intense agriculture, that biodiversity is extremely declining, for example, in development of bird population, we see a dramatic development. Here in the settlements or forests, you can see bird populations stay more or less stable, but in farmland, there is a dramatic decrease in the last years since the 90s. For example, since 1992, we lost 89% of pasturage, which is dramatic. But however, biodiversity here grew with anthropogenic landscapes and needs agricultural landscapes. So in order to preserve all those species, you can see here we have to preserve or re-implement small-scale structures which have been removed from the farms. However, farmers on the other side are in a unique tension field. Agricultural success is about natural resources and abiotic impacts. In the EU context, they have a comparable low income and gain 40% less than people with other professions. And small-scale structures are rather an economic problem for them. So when I spoke, for example, with a befriended farmer of mine, he gave me this citation, which is expressing very well the feelings farmers have here at the moment. And he said, you know, in times of crisis and inflation, consumers want to save money. However, they buy smartphones or other electronic devices, but pay less for food. Farmers earn even less, and on top, they are blamed for not saving biodiversity. So this is an extreme tension field, which is also shown here in this caricature, that the food sector on the left side is demanding that everything can even be produced cheaper. And on the other side, you see environmentalists who are blaming them for not saving biodiversity. So this tension field is a rather systematic problem, and why conservationist ideas are so difficult to communicate is still not very well understood. So BFN, so what is the abbreviation for my agency? They funded a research project which the name was Communication Between Stakeholders of Agriculture Nature Conservation. It was done by a sociologist and communication scientist, and they wanted to know why communication clashes and what are the reasons. And yeah, of course, it's a very emotional conflict where only one side is really financially involved. And there's a lack of trust on both sides and a lack of knowledge, path dependency, and internal organizational constraints. So at the end, it's an unresolved conflict of contrary objectives. Farmers often feel completely misunderstood from consumer side, environmentalist side, but also by their own people. There's even a lack of trust in the Ministry of Nutrition and Agriculture, and of course also in the Ministry of Conservation. And in December 2019, farmers were so upset about insect environmental strategies and we're fighting for a joint solution than one-sided bans. And you could see farmers' demonstration all over the country that couldn't be ignored. So our farmer chancellor Merkel invited everybody to a round table, the agricultural summit, where 40 members of association organizations from agriculture, science, and conservation were invited. This summit led to the Future Commission Agriculture, and that was the first time that all those parties sat on a round table and were really discussing together. And the aim was to focus together on the questions like, how can sustainable agriculture look like? How can a socially acceptable livestock farming look like? And what are the advices we want to give to our government? At the end, interestingly, in the older association members were very fast in their old fights, and they were not really ready to meet somewhere in the middle. But the two youngest members of the commission, Katrin Moos from the Young Farmers Association and Miriam Rapior from the Yaos Conservativist, they took their members together to find a joint vision for the future agriculture. And they wrote here to the right 12 guidelines for the transformation process of the agriculture and food system. And this was then given back as an advice to the government. And I think it can be seen as a success that at least they succeeded to speak really together and find these 12 guidelines together. Now going from politics more to the field, I have an example where environmentalists and farmers are working hand in hand. Is also a BFN-funded project where 10 conventional farms from arable livestock and arable farms are working together with scientists and environmentalists, and they have dialogue and demonstration projects and are working together on conservation measures. The objective is to develop and test measures to preserve and increase biodiversity in agricultural landscape. And the measures can be easily integrated into a normal farming practice, so farmers do not suffer economic disadvantages. And they want to find out where are the barriers within existing policy-funded instruments. And this project, it can be also seen as a very big success as it promotes really biodiversity, and it's at the same time practical and economically viable. So there were the results which were measured by scientists, and they found out that there were higher numbers of birds and other species through the implementation. For example, you can see on the right, flowering strips, or here in the middle and left, thin windows in the field where ground breeders can safely raise their offspring. So this is a lighthouse project that can be copied also by others. But if we really want to implement more conservation knowledge, we have to start also more early. We have to start in education when farmers are at school before they take the farms from their parents. And here we want to implement more teaching material. For example, BFN is currently developing a guidance text on flowering strips. So farmers really understand how conservation works and they can at the end make their own decisions for their individual areas. Yeah, at the end, we have to meet somewhere in the middle. And the study I showed you at the beginning and the best practice example showed that the positions sometimes are not even so far away from each other or even agreeing, but the conflict is so emotional that it's really difficult to come together. So what we have to learn from this is two central goals. So we have to spread our knowledge about each other and to create understanding for each other.